All right. Well, welcome to Coffee Conversations. My name is Jen LeBlanc-Billhartz, and I have a special guest today, Dr. Matt Hoormann.
Hello, hello, hello.
Not the typical type of doctor. Matt is a professional trombone player and faculty with Lindenwood University in the music department.
Hello.
Hello, how's it going?
We're hanging in there.
Good. Well, it's good to unofficially yet officially meet you via Zoom on our lovely podcast tonight.
I'm happy
So
to be here.
thank
I know
you for
we've had
being here.
we've had opportunities, and I've sent students your way, and I think we missed each other by a semester at Lindenwood.
We
So
did, yeah. So I graduated from Lindenwood 2010, and that's when you started, right?
in the fall,
Yeah, so I
so
guess I
just missed
graduated
you.
in spring. And yeah, I just missed you. But I was not in jazz studies or instrumentalist, and so we probably would have not crossed paths anyways. But
Here we
anyways,
are.
here we are. So you've studied trombone for a long time. You've got a doctorate. And what's
Yes,
your
ma'am.
doctorate in?
It's a Doctor of Musical Arts in Trombone Performance.
Nice. So you must be pretty good.
Some might say yes.
Is that a
If I,
trombone? You've got trombones on either side of you there?
yes, yes, I
Nice.
do.
So you just have the two?
Well, there's one in the case over there, and there's one stuck in my office at work, and
Okay.
yeah, we have a couple different
Awesome.
varieties and sizes for depending on the job.
Oh, really? Okay. I didn't know about all that.
Well, so normally, as it works, as it happens out, as it stands now, most of my work is on bass trombone, and which is kind of a niche instrument, mostly with jazz big band stuff. But there's been a movement toward solo type work, both in the classical and the jazz world, in the last 10, 20 years. And so a
Okay.
lot of my stuff is with that one. Um, but I also play like the normal trombone would be the jazz trombone, which is the one over there. Then there's like classical sized trombones, and there's teeny tiny ones for, you know, Beethoven, but that's about it.
Okay, so usually instruments are categorized by different voicings, but the trombone is categorized much differently, it seems. Am I
So
understanding
it's,
that correctly?
yeah, it's sort of like the saxophone family, and that, you've got the Kenny G soprano saxophone, and then there's alto saxophone and tenor saxophone, bari sax, and then there's contras. And trombones technically are kind of the same in that there are soprano trombones, and which some people call slide trumpets, and then alto trombone, tenor trombone, bass trombone, contrabass trombone. Um, like anytime you go to the movies and hear in the soundtrack, there's like at the very bottom,
Mhm.
it's probably not tubas. It's probably a contrabass trombone, which is huge,
Okay.
or a really weird instrument called a chimbasso, which is kind of like a pre-tuba thing. Um, but yeah,
Is that as big as a tuba?
kind of. You'll probably want to
Is that like a
splice in a.
sousaphone, or am I going in
It's
the wrong?
weird. It's
It's
weird.
different.
It almost looks like a cross between a tuba and like sort of like a bari sax. It's really odd. You'll have to
Mm,
look it up.
okay.
Chimbasso. There's a really cool video where they arrange the Game of Thrones theme for all low brass, and like trombone is the highest brass in there, and it's all like these really weird giant tubas and
Hmm,
contrabass trombones. It's really cool. You should check it out, and
neat.
your listeners and viewers too. It's super rad.
Wow. Well, that's more than I've ever known about trombone, so
I can't help but teach. Here we are.
well, that's what you live for, is teaching and so forth. So you are faculty at Lindenwood, which
Mhm,
we've already discussed, has a great music program.
mhm.
And then you're teaching jazz studies, and then also you're involved with the music business department, which
Right.
has really blossomed, I understand. And now I give credit to you. I didn't know where this like wonderful music business program came from, but it sounds like you have been kind of the inventor of all of that. So
Yeah.
how does that work? So I guess like why is that important in today's music world? Like, why is it so important for musicians? And I've had this conversation a little bit with other guests that are
Mhm.
performers. It's like you can't just learn your instrument and perform. Like you have to have all of this other side knowledge, like marketing, business, and all of that good stuff. So, um, how is that important to just a musician in general, even if they're just a performer and not looking necessarily to get into business? Like, for instance, I own a music school. That's true music business, but there's all sorts of different varieties of it.
Sure.
Um, so, yeah, take it away.
Um, so this whole thing, which I can't claim all the credit for, it's myself and Adam Donahue, who's another music faculty at Lindenwood. We were looking at the way music has been taught for the last really like 200 years, or from at least the 70s, if you want to talk about when jazz education started. Um, and uh, that knowledge coupled with my experience. So I went right out of high school, I went into college, I got my undergraduate in trombone performance. And then I got my master's in trombone performance. And then I went straight through and got my doctorate in performance. And that was 9 years of college of some really intense training. And then it was like, good luck, kid. Don't miss
Okay.
your loan payment,
Yeah.
And it for a while, there are people that make it. Um, I've auditioned for symphonies, and that was kind of my initial trajectory was to play for a major symphony, and then it kind of switched to be I wanted to be a studio player in Los Angeles. But having auditioned, I auditioned for the St. Louis Symphony twice. And at both auditions, there were 300 people from all over the world.
Wow.
And, you're
That's a
looking
lot of
at,
competition.
right. And you're looking at months and months and months of preparation. And then my auditions lasted about 2 minutes max. And then you thank you.
Oh my goodness.
And then you're done. So there were other people that I was competing against, I guess, that their job was almost to travel around the nation and audition at symphonies. So they're looking at airlines and just months and months of practicing the coolest classical repertoire and just beating it into submission
Okay.
and then not get the job. So when I finally found myself as a teacher, we were kind of doing the same thing. And it was like, what are these kids going to do? What are these young musicians going to do? They're just learning how to play trombone really well or learning how to play viola really well. And we all know as performers, there's just not the jobs out there, especially if you get into jazz or especially classical music. I mean, there are jobs, but the more successful people in those regions are making the work for themselves.
Right. I think that's and I kind of felt not quite to the capacity that you did with what you went through because I was never performance focused. But I mean, I think and this might not hold true just for musicians, but maybe a lot of different fields as well. But you get your degree and then what? And
Hmm.
it's not like career services isn't there to assist you, but it's like
They don't know.
what are you supposed to do? And you're right, music is such like a unique niche. Like then what? And so it was for me, I know this we'll get back to, I me being maybe a sample student here. I was very nervous about it. I didn't know
Yeah.
if I would make it. I thought, well, maybe I'll teach, but how do I do that? I don't feel ready for it, but yet I have this bachelor's degree. And my undergrad was very worthwhile and everything, but it's just like, then what? Um, so yeah, I've totally been there too. I relate.
Yeah. It's, and a disclaimer up front like, you don't need a degree in music to be in the music business. We've seen countless examples of people who make it work, just through grit and determination and sometimes dumb luck.
Yep.
And there's a lot of that plays part of it. Um, but what schools like where I'm at and like Miami Frost and Berkeley and the New School and like these higher ed places, that are kind of turning music education on its ear a little bit and insisting that even the most strict classical players, they learn how to be entrepreneurs. They learn a little bit of financing, or they learn a little bit of nonprofit administration, so that when they hit the reality that for any one of our positions there are 30 doctoral graduates coming out every year for like two jobs,
Okay.
um, you know, then what do you do? So schools like mine, and a lot of changes happened after you left. So don't anybody think that this is like a plug for something that she
Right.
already experienced. What we've done is try to take musicians. It's not for people who are not musicians, but take musicians, get them really good at their instrument, of course, but also teach them all of the other skills that you need to survive. Things like um, accounting and management and small business administration and all of that from like the business school type thing, everything that they're taking, MBA type students, but also how does marketing work for music? How does social media work for music? The idea being that sure, you're really good at your instrument, but the more you understand how the industry works, the more opportunities you have to do it and not pay someone else to do it,
Sure.
which kills most of us. But
Yes.
then if you get decent at that little thing that you happen to show some promise in, then other people start paying you. The one thing that I had going through with my stolen copy of Photoshop in college is that I got good at graphic design, just kind of doing it on my
Okay.
own. And then now, whenever I go to make an album, I don't pay anybody to do that. I do it myself. And then I charge someone else $500 for me to do their work. And it's fun for me. So, it's trying to load musicians for bear so that they get out there, they understand licensing, they understand running a business like you're doing, they understand playing. They also understand production and live sound and, so that hopefully both in the beginning when we're talking to students and their parents, they're not scared. And then at the end, they're not only not scared, but they're driven by the opportunities they see instead of just like good luck.
Yeah, no, I love that, and you kind of hit it, like, I feel like most parents try to steer their child away from studying music in college because 'cause they're like, "Well, what's your backup plan?"
Or they want you to be a band director or a choir director.
Yes. But, for me, like, I didn't worry, I chose, and that shadows the dog.
Hey, Pop.
Um, for me, I chose a liberal arts school because a third of my education was still the dog. Will she sounds like, what does she sound like?
A Wookie.
Like the abominable snowman or something. Oh my gosh. Um, so we'll choose to either cut that out or leave it depending how funny it is.
Whatever.
Anyways, um, for me, like, it didn't matter. Like, I wasn't scared because, I had spent really my whole life prior to college working on my musicianship skills and perfecting my instruments and everything like that. And certainly, of course, there's much more to learn and experience in college in that regard. But, it was just a third of it. And then I got to do a third of gen eds, which, were kind of boring and a little bit repetitive, but worthwhile nonetheless. And then a third of electives. So you can kind of like plug in those holes of things that you want to study that are good for your
Mhm.
career or just because you have the time to do it. So like I wasn't scared. I knew like I was getting such a strong foundation that even if music failed me, then I could still be successful and do something else. Like I still
Mhm.
had that bachelor's degree. And so like for me that was like really worthwhile. And so I actually I started managing a medical office, um, which helped me to develop a lot of those business skills. And I just like became self-taught. And then I finally had the opportunity and the confidence to go out and start my own music school. And so, I think it was like a great stepping stone. Now, I wish you had started a year prior because I had just finished up my final year at Lindenwood. I had transferred in, had completed all of my music courses by then. So it's just fulfilling my lesson and ensemble requirements so that I could maintain my scholarship, of course.
Sure.
Um, but I mean, that would have been really interesting to me because like I said, I was not performance driven in the least. I was very much an outlier to that. And but no, was there even a music business program back before you started?
I think there was, because when I started, I was just doing trombone and brass ensemble, and I kind of weaseled my way into a full time thing, and you know
That's awesome.
tore it all down and built it back up. A lot of schools, because business is kind of like the new thing right now in terms of higher ed, especially
Yes, very hot.
entrepreneurialism. And so music schools are trying to create music business degrees by taking a BA music and giving them a minor in business and going, music business, you got it.
It doesn't work.
Right.
Not
And
not to
honestly,
say anything bad about other programs, but there's such there's a disconnect. They're
right,
not the same.
there's
They're not the
more.
same. Yeah.
Right. There's so much more. And that's how our degree program was at the beginning before I arrived there. And it had only
Okay.
been around 3 years or something, but it was like, hey, we did a thing. And Adam Donahue and I tore it down and we built it back up, thinking, when I started college, I was a jazz performance major and then changed to classical because I wanted to do symphonies. And my directors at the time were like, if your degree says jazz, they won't invite you to symphony auditions. So I switched it, but I still did all the jazz stuff. I
Sure.
just, was
Kind of
named this.
yeah.
And Adam he went through Berkeley, and then he was on the cruise ships for 8 years as a
Wow.
music director. And so he kind of went through hard knocks and like the real stuff. And we were like, what is a degree that we would want as someone who wants to play music and make my career in music? What would we need to survive as a 21st century musician?
Sure.
And so, it's almost a foregone conclusion now that you're good, but what else you got? There's content creators and Instagram, kings that are not all that great, but they understand how the system works and they're able to build a career with things like YouTube, Instagram, and now Patreon and some of these, subscription type things. It makes it possible to have a career in music, which is amazing.
Sure.
And
Yeah,
with
it
the
is, and you can just do it on your own, without, the confines of being part of an ensemble or,
right,
having to find a manager or producer. You can just do it yourself a
and
little
you could be in St. Charles, Missouri, and through the power of the internet, be able to take that weird thing that you like and get it out to so many people that you can create that sort of patron system where if I can get my message out to 1,000 people to give me $5 a month, woo,
bit.
to give me $5 a month, I mean, that's a living.
That
And
is,
then
yeah.
it's upwardly scalable. And then on
So
top of that, you play and record and sell merch and all of those things
yeah, so you
too.
got all of those components. Like, it sounds a little bit overwhelming. So, obviously, things are much different today than they even were 2 years ago. So, how does a
Mhm.
musician truly stay on top of that? Like, once you graduate and you've got your degree, all of that could be completely irrelevant 10 years later.
Right. I think one good model for that sort of thing, um, and this person, and he teaches with us, Bob Baker,
Yes.
the author of the Guerrilla Music or the Guerrilla Music Marketing Handbook,
Yes, he's brilliant.
and as long as all of these other things, he's not a young man anymore. But
You said it, not me.
yeah, I mean, I think he would agree with me. But the concepts that he understands, that an email list will never go away. A
Right.
mailing list will never disappear. And that's a number one. Even the Instagrammers, if they're touring musicians, they know that their mailing list is prime.
It's constant.
And you and I, unfortunately, are old enough that we remember when MySpace was the thing. And
Yep.
then within 12 months, it was completely gone.
Yes, I worry about that with Facebook. I'm like, and I had this conversation with a buddy of mine. I don't know if you know Chris Swan.
Not well.
He's actually worked with Bob. Bob kind of helped coach him through because he's independent and he's worked to build up his own
I
several
think
different
Chris,
music businesses.
he came and talked to our students, I think, once. I didn't get to
Okay,
meet him, but I think he came in Bob's class.
wonderful guy. Anyways, and I we've worked kind of together in a sense, and we bounce ideas off of each other. And I had the same thought one day. I was like, oh my gosh, like what happens if we wake up tomorrow and Facebook is just locked down and we can't get in and we have thousands of followers and that's the only way we can reach out to people and then there's nothing. And I was like, we would have no way to reach people without spending a fortune on like paid advertisements through Google or whatever. And so I've had the same thought. Like, you're absolutely right. Like, the email list. And I think so many young people are afraid of that because it seems a little bit ancient in a sense. Like,
Sure.
as
Sure.
new as email is, I think that people are just stepping away from it and they're doing all this direct messaging through social media, and that's their source of communication. Um, so yeah, it's but no, there is so much power with email. It's incredible like how well that really can work.
And so, yes, I completely agree with you, because that's the only way to know exactly where they are, even if the method changes. Um, Bob talks about this in his books, and I talk about it all the time in my classes. This kind of hub and spoke marketing concept. I think
Okay.
he calls it octopus marketing. But basically, and this is where a lot of the younger musicians, they don't buy in because everyone, they've all moved to Instagram, TikTok, Snapchat, whatever the new thing is. Um, I'm not that old and I can't keep up. But the one thing that you will always have control over is your website, and having a home base or the hub in your spokes
Mhm.
so that you always have control of that. And if the Facebook spoke breaks off,
Sure.
then you still have all of that information and you can direct them to the new thing. If suddenly everybody flocks over to LinkedIn or whatever, like fine, I can just shift it. And
And
these
that
things
but
are always
kind of the
referencing
point
each
is
other.
always to get people to your website anyways. Like,
Right.
you're not gonna sell somebody in thin air literally on Instagram, like, they have to get somewhere.
Right. And so if you've got a Spotify page and it links back to your website, and through the website, they see that you have a Bandcamp page and they go over there and then they have a chance to buy your album if they want to support you. There's this concept called super fans. I don't know if you've heard of this, but think of that like whatever musician or artist that you love, like that one that, like, oh my gosh, John Bon Jovi. Oh my gosh. Um, People want to spend about $60 a year on that person, on that band, on that whoever, whether it's Beyonce or Mumford and Sons or your super fans want to give you that money. And if you're a band and you're only putting an album out every 3 years, or now it's like a single a month,
Yes.
um, so there's a whole other thing to that too. But if you're only putting out an album every 3 years at $10 a pop, you're only letting them give you $10 every 3 years. And so part of what happens now is that we've got all of these other things. And we talked about it with kind of the content creators and Patreon. And with when Kickstarter came out, there's these different levels of stuff. Um, so it's getting young musicians, or any musicians, it's getting 21st century musicians to think about giving your fans opportunities to participate in your art. And they
Right.
do that through giving you money. So, and The other thing that we have to learn, and this is a bitter, bitter pill to swallow, but music is not the commodity anymore. No one's buying music anymore.
Sure.
And everyone goes, record scratch. And like, but they, what we value most in society right now is connections, whether they are real or perceived. So that when Taylor Swift puts out a new album, yeah, she's going to get a hajillion streams and stuff, but that's like 0.00006 cents per stream or something ridiculous.
Right.
That's not where T Swift's money comes
No,
from.
not at all.
It's the cat pillows that she sells on her website. And people are like, oh, she loves cats and I love cats and I'll buy the pillow. What band is thinking, I'll put out a pillow for people to buy? But those are the things that people are looking for. It's the access, it's, private screenings of the film or private chats with the band or lessons with somebody or backstage passes or a vial of their sweat or something. But like,
Yeah.
it's those things. That's where the market is now.
Well, why don't we're gonna have a quick pause here, and then after our pause, we're gonna get into perhaps why that is and how some of these, musicians that are just up and coming can make a living with this.
Got it.
Sound good?
Yes.
Cool. So we'll be right back in just a
They say that the apple doesn't fall far from the tree, so I'd fall all the way to China, a homeless girl living on the streets. Help me, my bottle's getting empty, feeling like I'm losing the game of life. I need some help with my self-regulation. Aberration, it's not working out. Not working out. Not working out. Not working out. Yeah.
All right. So, how can these not necessarily younger musicians, but up and coming musicians, how are they supposed to be making money? Like, what is your best advice? Like, they're obviously not going to make money selling cat pillows like Taylor Swift because nobody knows their name. Like, how do you get anything outside of playing gigs or teaching?
So right now, we'll start with kind of like let's start with like a garage rock band or something, like a mainstream sort of group, and it's basically the same for everybody. But let's say you're a garage band. The best, number one best thing you can do is do gigs and build your fan base. That is the bedrock for everything that happens above that. And you can't do that playing at the same venue in your town every weekend because then you're going to burn out your fans, your local fans, and you're not spreading the word. We talk about like viral videos or memes now, and it's because I share it with you and you share it with them and like so on.
Sure.
So I can't just gig in St. Charles and like, you know, have my music get out. But what I can do is start pulling enough people that if I play at venue X and I'm pulling 30 people solid, then I know that I can call, the next city, then a smaller town, smaller
Mhm.
venue, and say, I can put 30 people in your room.
Okay.
And then you start to build up. And if you're doing your job and keeping your mailing list, you have the 30 from your hometown and you've got 30 from the next place and 30 from the next place. And then you start engaging with those people because I
Gotcha.
alluded earlier, I talked about what people are interested in. And by people, I mean consumers, fans, people who listen to music or art, whatever. There's a higher degree, there's a higher expectation for access to this, to the talent, whether it's a band or an actor or, whatever
Sure.
is
That
people.
connection.
Yeah, I can directly message Denzel Washington on whatever social media platform. Whether or not he actually listens to it or not, or responds back, is sort of irrelevant. But I was watching an interview with Dane Cook, comedian, was huge in the 90s, and his whole empire, he was the tippy top, and it was made through MySpace. And the dude answered everybody that contacted him. And then virally, you hear like, man, this guy's super accessible and he answers me. And that just builds.
Okay.
So you've created that connection.
Right. It's everything right
Then,
now.
right, especially right now when
Yes.
connection, we're just aching for some sort of connection. And there are a lot of bands, both big and small, that are doing like, Zoom concerts or whatever,
Yep.
where they're live streaming, AKA pre-mixed by professionals, where they're all recorded separately. But, and people are eating it up because it feels genuine and it feels like there's a connection there. What that connection then does is it opens a gateway for them to care about you and your career.
Okay.
And what that means for you as an artist is they're willing to give you money. They're willing to support you. So I'm sorry, I'm rambling.
No, that's why we're here. Like that, you're doing it right.
Okay, good.
But
Nailing it.
I was thinking, I go and see, I know there's a lot of great music venues out in St. Charles. And for those of you that are not local, St. Charles is just outside of St. Louis. We're in Missouri. I'm in St. Louis, but it's just a hop and a skip away. We're between two rivers, right?
Yeah.
Well,
Yep.
no, you're on the other side. I'm on the other side. We've got, we're sandwiched.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Or I'm sandwiched and you're just over there.
Nailing it, Jen. It's
Okay,
going well.
clearly I don't have a degree in geography. But
There we go.
anyways, a lot of really great music venues, small venues, large venues, and then also great opportunities for people to just kind of gig in the corners of restaurants, which to me
Right.
is like the coolest thing ever.
Sure.
Because the consumer can go have a drink, socialize, have dinner, whatever, and there's some of the most talented musicians just playing music there.
Mm-hmm.
And it's free and you're just enjoying it and it's just part of the ambiance and all that.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not trying to criticize anybody that I've seen out because I've seen other musicians not do this, but I feel like a lot of them are not doing what you're advertising they should be doing. Is what of course they're socializing and engaging with people, but they're not looking to build up their email list per se, and they're not capturing those people's information. They're just kind of like connecting and then separating and hoping they catch them on Facebook or whatever. And so it leaves me wondering, like, there could be so much more. Like, is it that a lot of musicians just don't? I mean, it comes down to a few things. They don't know what to be doing, which is why we're talking about this to begin with. B, they don't have the drive. They're just comfortable with what they're doing. Or C, it's just not typical, or that would be an atypical thing to do. So, what is your thought on all of that?
I would add another reason that people don't is because it kind of feels icky. Like it feels like you're panhandling, or that you're trying to
Right.
shyster them into giving you money or whatever. And we alluded to this before the break, but as a society, as a world society, we have devalued the actual music itself to the point where, $13 a month or whatever it is on Spotify to have a thing, that's like outrageous. 13
Sure.
whole dollars a month so that I don't have to listen to ads. So it's just,
Yeah,
and
you're right.
so there's been a cultural shift away from the value of music. So I think sometimes as a musician, we kind of approach it, like a whipped dog or something, just asking for scraps. Like, hey, I don't want to bother you, but if you want to buy my album, if you don't, that's fine, but here it is. Or, I mean, I got t-shirts or something, I guess, like, rather than seeing it as it's like a mind shift where you're like, I'm not asking people for money. I'm giving them opportunities to participate in the creation of my art.
So
And when you,
how do you help these young people build that confidence? I mean, what's amazing is they have the confidence to get up and play their
Mhm,
instrument, but they don't have the confidence to then promote themselves. So what
right.
are those next steps? Like how does somebody get to that point?
So I think one of the best things you can do at the beginning is start, and I'm going to use the evil word, start networking with other bands or other artists that are like you. So if you're in a rock band and you're not going to other rock bands concerts, what are you doing? And you're going to start to meet these people, and you're going to meet their fans by being at their thing. And so you
Okay.
start to just, it kind of like breaks the seal a little bit on like talking to people. I've got some students now that um, their band performs with stage makeup and stuff, which is awesome. That's great. Do it.
Okay.
But then as soon as they come off the stage and you're forced to like actually converse with somebody, like you can't hide behind the makeup, you can't hide behind the stage, and they want that connection. They saw the makeup, but they want the connection. Everybody loved it when the Kiss took the makeup off, and they, oh my god, they're real people, and like, um, so I think it's going to other concerts, it's being in the scene, and then it's having a merch table set up. And at that merch table, maybe your first couple goes around, you're not looking to make a ton of money off of it, but what you're looking for is that sweet, sweet email. So, and how do we get those emails? Because people don't want to give those up. Give them something for free.
Yep.
Give them a band sticker or give them a free download. All I need is your email and your name. And then once you kind of break that seal, then the emails can roll out where it's
Yep.
like, hey, person
Exactly.
who said that they liked me enough, they gave me their contact info. Here's a little bit more. Here's my website where you can give me more money if you want. And here's all the different ways that you can be involved in my art, whether it's wearing a t-shirt with my face on it or buying a cat pillow or getting free like demo recordings of something, like
That's
things
awesome.
that just different things.
But
Lead sheets,
people
lead
want
sheets for my
something for
songs.
free. Yeah. So, I've kind of learned through my own, self-education with all this modern day marketing is absolutely people want something for free. They don't want a discount. They want something free.
Mhm.
So, you produce something that is just work one time up front. It's not going to cost you something necessarily. So like that demo or whatever, and then it's nothing to you. You just they get this electronically, and then you've got them,
Right.
and then you work on the marketing from there. You've got a campaign set up, or a whole email sequence or whatever. You invite them to more shows. You build up the level, and then you're absolutely right. That was a perfect response. So, but are people doing that? Like I would probably tell you, and there's not much music going on right now, but maybe I'm in the wrong music scene, but I don't see people doing that. Why is that? It's just that you think confidence issue? Like,
I think that for as many different artists there's that many different reasons. Some of it is confidence.
okay,
You and I both know that artists are, in many ways, very frail in terms of that part of it, the ask. Hey, give me money. They can scream all day or play improvised solos for an hour at a time, but like when you comes down to like looking someone in the eye and being like, "Hey, I've got this thing. Give me some money for my thing." Or you
yeah,
just enjoyed this thing, give me some money. Um, I think we're starting to see a little bit more of it as the industry is gasping for air right now. I know there are some bands that are turning to Twitch, which is, do you know what Twitch is?
I've never heard of it.
So, Twitch is a platform that people who play games they use. So they stream themselves playing the game,
Okay.
and there's a picture of them over here, and there's like a chat running, and there's
Mhm.
usually some sort of tip jar.
So not much different from what people have been doing to survive during quarantine. These professional musicians doing the
Right.
live Facebook on
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Instagram, and they've got their tip jar, then the whole thing. So kind of like that.
It's exactly like that. Only
Okay.
it's like it's built more for like the tip jars built into it. It's not
Oh,
like
nice.
here's my Venmo link.
Well, I could
Go
definitely
away.
see that. I could see that being a thing, like, especially, probably pre-COVID and quarantine. Sorry, I bumped my mic. Prior to that, I would have been like, "That's outrageous." Like, people wanna get out and see things. There's music festivals and all that, but, um, I think that's a totally plausible idea. But yet, I don't know, it goes both ways. Like, to me, music is very social, and I'd hate to see the other aspects of music just disappear or to suffer. But it's an ends to a means to an end. Did I say that wrong? Which way is it?
You got it. It's a means to an end.
Means to an end.
Even the
Um,
biggest names like Garth Brooks is trying to find ways. They're
yeah, I
doing
saw that. The
drive-in.
drive-in.
Yeah, that's
Holy cow!
brilliant.
Yeah.
And there's like this. It still kind of feels social. You get dressed, you get out of your house, you
Hmm.
go park your car somewhere. And they're not to use the analogy again, but for as many musicians and artists as there are, there's all these different solutions for how maybe you should reach your audience and I should reach my audience. Like, I don't think
Absolutely.
I could use Twitch. I've never used it before, but things like that where you meet your audience where they are. Instagram Live was a big thing even before COVID, where bands would be like, "We're at sound check, Instagram Live," and people just eat it up because it's that sense of connection with the band. "Oh, we're in the trailer, Instagram Live," and they're like, "We're there too. Here's some money."
Yeah.
Um, yeah, if I have my number correct, and I don't know if I do, the music industry last year was like a $4 billion industry. There is money for everybody. It's not just Beyonce and Taylor Swift. It's not just the tippy top. It's for everybody down there. And it's about making the connection to the consumers and their pocketbooks and giving them opportunities to participate in your art
I
and
like
not
that. So,
feeling,
yeah, no,
yeah,
I took connection and opportunity.
right,
I mean,
right.
it really comes down to just that.
Can you say that again? I lost you. It comes down to,
Yeah, you froze while you were drinking.
I'm in a basement.
Connection and connection and opportunity.
Right. Right. And some of that way of thinking is not normal for people coming, whether you're a kid coming out of high school, out of college, or you're an older artist who's trying to figure out how to survive in the 21st century. We're not ever really taught how to provide opportunities for other people to give us money. We're taught how to play really well, go up on stage, play your butt off, do a good job of it. And that reminds me, all of this is predicated on the fact that what you're doing is good. Whatever weird thing you're
Absolutely.
doing, it has to be good. But once you have the product, it's about finding ways to get it to the consumer, to connect them to the artist in ways that they understood in Renaissance Italy, like that people invested in the artists so that the artists could make their thing. And that's what YouTubers do. My son loves this dude who makes like fish tanks and pools and is like
Oh,
I
cool.
think his name's Paul Kufaro or something. And he
Okay.
just he just makes ponds and then has like a farm. And my son loves it. And this dude has 1 million followers on YouTube.
Wow.
And it's like, what is he offering? He's offering connection and he's offering this platform. And then he gives them the ability to give him money. And the dude's got way better cars than I do. Like,
So, I can imagine it being a little bit scary trying to make a living, we're talking about social media right now. So making a living with social media, to me, everything seems so oversaturated. So you're trying,
Yeah.
like, literally everybody's trying to do something. Everybody's trying to do a podcast. I mean, I'm one and I don't even want to know how many. Like, nobody cares about me. So it's absolutely right. Like, you have to connect. And it's such a difficult thing because why is somebody going to care about what you're doing when they don't even know who you are? It would just be happenstance that somebody's going to discover you and you get big. And you can't ever predict what it is that you're doing that's going to cause that to happen. It's usually the one thing that you're not expecting. And I can completely imagine that being very intimidating.
I think that is, yes, of course. It's horrifying to be like, I could be doing this really, really well and no one's going to catch it. And there's two things there. One of which I just forgot. So I'll say the other one. I think it was Jim Carrey who said that his dad said, like, I'd rather fail at something that I love than fail at something that I hate. So, oh, that was the other thing, is that it behooves artists to be true to themselves and
Yes.
their art and not try to like read the paper and like, oh, what's a paper? No, go on the internet and see what the biggest, I'm going to make, ponds in my backyard.
No, do
That's
your
not,
own thing. And
yeah.
if
And
you love it, somebody else will. There's got to be other people out there, right?
because yes, of course, the world is so huge. Like it's unfathomably huge how many people are out there. And whatever weird thing that you think only you like, forget about it. There's people there. So it's finding a way to get to them. It's using things like Reddit or industry blogs and whatever weird thing that you like. I've got a friend out in Los Angeles who he's big into avant-garde jazz, which is about the smallest niche you can get into, and then gypsy jazz,
Okay.
which is like even smaller.
Yeah.
But he is making a living because he is doing it so well and doing it with such fervor and passion that people are like, holy smokes, that's really cool. I'm in. Whether or not they woke up that morning going, I wonder what's going on in the gypsy jazz world today.
Right. They heard it and loved it. And you nailed it again, is the passion. Like,
Yeah, if
you
you're not
if
into it, quit.
you're passionate about something, other people are going to catch wind of that and become passionate too.
Right. And that I said it for a second, but like I do believe in this, and I'll tell my students this every day. If you're not into this, like if you don't wake up in the morning and your first breath is like, I'm gonna make music today, you should probably do something else. And that's not a bad thing. You can still play trombone for the whole rest of your life or whatever it is. You can do it in community bands or in your basement or whatever. But if you don't love it, then do not torture yourself because the music industry is for the passionate and for the gritty and for the stubborn and sometimes not so smart because we just keep pounding away until our thing gets recognized by other people.
And if it doesn't, I mean, you alluded to this before with the Jim Carrey dad quote is
I think that's who it was. Yeah.
and I live in a similar fashion, is why our life is so short. Why waste time doing something you don't love? And especially when it comes to music, if you're a performer, you have to practice endless
Yeah.
hours a day, like you have to.
Right.
And there's no point if you're not feeling it, then your message is not going to be conveyed and your music's going to be completely flat and it's just the whole thing's a waste.
People can see through bullshit so easily. And if you're not dealing, then not to pick on this one band, but I remember I took my niece and nephew to go see Evanescence in concert,
Okay.
and I love them. Evanescence is great. It's so cool. Is that Amy Lee? or do I have the wrong
I don't
person?
know, but, whoever the lead singer is has a gorgeous, very strong
Yes.
voice.
Yes. I totally dig it. I love the layering. The albums are awesome. And they were coming through what used to be the Riverport Amphitheater. I
Yep.
guess, is it Hollywood Casino Amphitheater?
Oh gosh, I guess and it was Verizon before that.
Yeah. So, Riverport.
Mhm.
So they were coming through as part of a festival and they asked me to take him. I was like, yeah, I like Evanescence. And it was the last stop on their tour. And she was plastered. And it was like, as a fan, it was like, you're not dealing and you've let me down. You've let all these people down. I'm happy you're happy, but you just blew it. You just kind of like wasted this opportunity
For
to
sure.
kind of like sink your talons in.
Yep.
It's okay. I still like Evanescence. I think they're great. But that was not a positive experience. But like you said, if you're not feeling it, people see right through that and you've lost them. And
Yeah,
so
and
do something
I
else.
mean, I experience the same thing even, when I'm teaching, and I don't do a ton of teaching, but I do enough, on a weekly basis, and you have to I'm sure it's much different with college-aged adults, but when I'm dealing with younger children, it's like um I just have to keep the momentum going and keep the energy flowing, otherwise, you're gonna lose the kid, they're just gonna stop caring, and it might not be just that day, but then they're not gonna go home and practice, they're not gonna play, and then it'll become an eventual, catastrophe and train wreck that just builds on it. It's like you just if you don't love so I'm just saying it's not just for performers, also for educators, like it's a whole thing. You're trying to inspire somebody that is already you've gotta re-inspire them almost every day. They're already
I'll,
inspired, you've just gotta keep that going for them. So, I can totally relate to, where you're going with that.
I'll take it a step further and
Please
say
do.
that when whatever you're doing in your life, let's get super philosophical here.
Mhm.
Whatever you are doing, if you're not into it, do something else. I've got students that'll come through and they'll be like, "Oh, my job at XYZ is so bad." I'm like, "Then get another job."
Yeah, we live in the day and age in which you can do that, or if not, you can create your own job. So
Yeah, there's a crappy job somewhere else or make your own job, you know?
exactly, and so I don't think, you're right, it's like life is too short, and that can go for anything, like, if you hate shopping at the Schnucks across the street, drive to the other one, or, same thing with relationships or whatever. I mean, certain thing you can't get rid of your mother-in-law, but, um
I hope she doesn't watch this.
sorry. I'm sure
No.
she's lovely, but you know what I mean? Like, certain things you cannot control, of course. You cannot. But other things, if it's within your control, then make it your own. Business is not for everybody.
No.
Um,
Oh,
some musicians and some educators want nothing to do with business. And if they have the means to that, that's fine. They can find a school to teach for, who runs everything, or they can find a manager and they can just sit back and focus on their thing. There's always a way around it.
sure. Yeah. Just don't get stuck.
So,
It's
yeah, that's great
life's too
advice.
short.
It
There's
is
no
too short.
guarantees after that. Even if we all go to some magical place in the sky, we still have to do this one first
Be
before
happy.
we get there. So, I mean,
Yep,
go for it.
that's great
YOLO.
advice.
Cut
So,
that out.
I didn't even hear what you said.
I said YOLO.
Oh, that's why I missed
Ooh,
it. I had to think
yeah.
about that for a second. Um, yeah, I'm definitely not as keen on the terminologies as you are,
That's
but
about 10 years old, so you're okay.
you've gotta stay on top of all of that to
Yeah.
gosh, my goodness, I don't know how you do it. That's something else.
I don't know. It's one day. I took my wife to the doctor the other day, and someone else checking in was like, they're like, "What's your date of birth?" Like 1998. And I was just like, that's when I graduated high school. And that's when
Right.
they were born. I'm like, I'm officially old. So
Yeah, isn't that crazy that, we were born in the 1900s and
you're born a whole century ago,
everyone is, 2000s and it's
but I don't even know what week today is. So
What week? What day?
what week today is. Every day is the same. So, except I get to talk to you today. So,
Yeah, and this has been awesome.
agreed.
Yes. So we've been talking about jazz music. Obviously, you play jazz and you also learned classical
Hmm.
trombone. Is that how you would phrase that?
Sure. Yeah. I
Um,
learned how to play really, really well a lot of different things.
okay. And you also you clearly like Evanescence,
Sure.
despite her drunken episode. What other kind of music inspires you? Do you play other instruments?
I play a little bit of tuba and a little bit of baritone.
Okay.
Beyond that, my mom and dad both play guitar. My brother plays guitar, and I want to so bad. And I have a ukulele hanging there,
Ooh,
but
I see it. It's cute.
I can't really play it. I can play one song on it. Um,
That's better than no songs.
but I think what has really hit the last decade or so. So when I was a student going through school, I was very like jazz purist, and I'm like Count Basie and Woody Herman, and that's it.
Okay.
And I think if we don't approach life with an open mind, we miss out on a lot. And the things I'm listening to right now, the one that's really driving me nuts is, in a good way. Um, his name is Tigran Hamasyan. He's a piano player. Um, I don't know exactly where he's from because I'm going to say it and it's going to be wrong. Um, Somewhere in the Middle Eastern, Balkanish kind of India, like the other side of the world.
Okay.
He is not an American jazz musician.
Well, I could tell
And
by
then,
the name. So,
yeah,
can you say the name one more time?
yeah, Tigran or Tigran Hamasyan. And I'm
Okay.
going to look it up because we're on
And he's
computers.
a pianist.
Armenian. He
Armenian.
is
Ooh.
Armenian,
Okay.
and it's I guess you would call it jazz. One of the things that I do at school is make sure that I beat out of anyone what they think jazz is. Because whatever you think it is, it's that plus a whole lot more, including, oh my gosh, I'm blanking on names. A lot of the hip hop and rap that we listen to now, um, I cannot think of his name and it's killing me. Um, Jazz is everything, everything. But anyway, Hamashian. It's amazing. It's the most complicated rhythms but it's so beautifully and like interwoven, and there's still that kind of jazz conversation where there's improvisation and there's some folk. It's so amazing. That's one. Jacob Collier. I don't know if you're familiar with Jacob Collier. He's from the UK, very young, infuriatingly young. He's probably like 24.
Yeah.
And his grasp of harmony, and he kind of made his impact initially with the YouTube videos that everyone's doing now with the
Mhm.
multi-up screen things. He
Yep.
was doing those before,
Okay.
using the most dense, beautiful harmonies and these really cool arrangements of. There's one of the Flintstones. There's one of Isn't She Lovely? Jacob Collier. Check it out. Snarky Puppy, if you're aware of them, a bunch of North Texas grads um, that have fused kind of gospel and jazz and a little bit of metal sometimes and some
Okay.
vocal, and it's awesome. Dirty Loops. I think they're Swedish. Let me double check.
Okay.
Okay, I'm looking. You're gonna cut out the delay here. They are from Stockholm, Sweden.
Nice.
It's a trio. Again, they hit big with. My favorite is they do Justin Bieber's Baby,
Okay.
and it is the sickest, most creative
Hmm.
playing, singing. Oh my god.
So how are you finding all of these musicians from other parts of the world?
Hmm. One of the coolest things that Spotify has given, and before it was Pandora a little bit, were like stations where I can pull up Tigran Hamasyan's newest album
Okay.
and enjoy it. And then if you let it keep going, it'll like create a station of like artists that are not him. So it
Sure.
kind of keeps the vibe
Yeah.
going. And I'll be, in the car or working and I'm like, what is that? And then I'll look that up and see that, oh, it's um, Donnie McCaslin, who's a saxophone player who I'm going to say a name that you know. You ready?
I'm ready.
David Bowie.
Yes.
David Bowie. His last album, Black Star, had a jazz band with him. Not a jazz band, but like a jazz musicians as his band,
Okay.
led by a saxophonist named Donnie McCaslin. And that album is so like jazz influenced and it's amazing. And then Donnie did albums after Bowie's passing
Mhm.
that feel a lot like David Bowie, but from the other angle. And so I'll be listening to him and then something else pops up. I'm like, what is that? And it's the discovery of new things. Count Basie is awesome. And I will never not love Count Basie, but I am just hungry for what the 21st century is. Give me what if we took Stevie Wonder and added some Skrillex and then put like, let's just blow up genres. They're useless anyway. And these groups that we've never heard of because they can't win a genre. They're not going to win a Grammy in a genre, although Snarky Puppy has won Grammys. But it's like, they're reaching their fans. They're selling out. A band named Wolfpack sold out Madison Square Gardens. You've never heard them. They sold it out. And that ain't nothing. So internet,
So Spotify is the key.
for at least
Are
for
there
me when I
other
was getting started
Okay, and I don't
listening.
use I don't use Spotify. I'm a little bit old-fashioned, but so and I'm probably an exception to that rule, but are there other than, like, Pandora, you can kinda do a similar thing on Pandora, but are there other outlets for that kind of a thing?
There are two that I'll throw at you. One would be like as an artist, I use Bandcamp to distribute my CD for actual purchase.
Sure.
You can stream it everywhere, but like if you want to buy a disc, I have some, and you can do it through Bandcamp. And then you can, when other people are using that, you can see artists that they've kind of pegged and
Oh,
like,
cool.
and you can see like again, my friend in Los Angeles, his name is Dan Rosenboom.
Okay.
Killer avant-garde jazz stuff. And when I say that, people go, but it's not what you're thinking. Whatever you're thinking, it's not that. It's a little bit of rock, it's a little bit of gypsy, it's improvisation, it's awesome. And so Bandcamp, you can see like what's Dan liking and
Okay.
what do those people like and kind of like
Awesome.
follow
Oh, I
that
like that. Okay.
thing. The other thing is YouTubers, YouTube influencers. There's two that I kind of have a professional crush on. The top one would be Adam Neely, who has a YouTube channel where it's a lot of kind of explaining. Some of it is like really heady music stuff, like super nerd out the wazoo
Mhm.
heady stuff, but he breaks it down and uses the platform so beautifully with his editing and illustrations and stuff. It's just awesome. But he also will talk about other musicians and bands and kind of what's turning him on and stuff, and he's kind of at the forefront of that stuff too. That's Adam Neely.
Okay.
The other one is Rick Beato. Um, Again, he's got I think 1 million subscribers on YouTube. He used to be a producer. I think he still is too, but he was a producer kind of in the alt rock and country area in
Mhm.
the 90s. And now he'll do things like top 20 guitar intros or what he has a series called What Makes This Song Great. And he'll talk about using the Aeolian mode in popular music. And it's like, it sounds like really dry.
Yeah.
It's so good. That's
Wow.
Rick Beato.
Okay.
And those guys will drop a band that I've never heard of. And as studied as I am, and as many years as I've walked the earth, I can't possibly listen and have listened to everybody.
It's
So I'm
impossible.
always picking up new stuff through things like this, or my friend at work, Adam Donahue, or I'll be talking with Dan, and like students will bring stuff in that I didn't know. And it's keeping this open so that you're always thirsting and never pretending like your stuff is better than that stuff. It's like, give me more. Nom, 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 nom.
Yeah, and it's good. Like it helps to influence you, and it's not. I wouldn't say it's better. It's positive. So, not once did I hear you mention the radio. Um, is the radio? Do you think the radio is a dying thing? Like for me, I might be one of the only people that still listens to the radio. So I get a lot of my stuff. Lindenwood, by the way, has my favorite radio station ever. So I really like the style of music they're playing. And in the last year or so, they've added some classic rock, which makes my heart happy too. So,
That's thanks to one of my students who ended
oh,
up interning for you.
yes. And because of FERPA laws, we won't mention.
No, no,
But,
but she did
anyways,
a great job with that,
yeah. And so
and her predecessors too.
yeah, and I've loved that station. So I hear some new stuff there, because it's not too pop heavy or mainstream. And also, like KDHX and stuff like that. But like
Mhm.
in regards to the radio itself outside of the St. Louis region, like is that a dying thing, or do you think is the online platforms going to eventually take over? How long can the radio support itself?
That is an incredibly good question. That
Especially these non-commercial. I mean, obviously, Lindenwoods is not gonna go away because 'cause they're, educating their students through it and whatever, but all some of these other ones like KDHX, like, they're struggling, I'm sure, and
Yeah. So everything I said before about where I get my music, that's not it. I do listen to the radio. I love The Point. I listen to 105.7 The Point
yeah.
all the time. Um, I enjoy popular music, especially the stuff that came out, when I was about 14, because they say that that's the music that you'll always love is whatever you were listening to when you're 14. That's like, so
Interesting.
Tool, Nirvana, Pearl Jam. Yeah. Always, as much
That's
as I listen
valid.
to the cutting edge stuff, I will always listen to The Point, and I enjoy, was it the Arch 106.5, and they've got
Mhm.
kind of a mix of everything from the past like
For
30
sure.
years. Delicious. Um, but what you don't get from the radio, and I will answer your question, what you don't get from the radio is the stuff that hasn't been chosen for you.
The stuff that hasn't been chosen for you, because somebody is pre-selecting that to be played at that given moment.
Yes. And not just the DJ, you know, obviously KDHX and the Lindenwood thing, they're a little bit different. But even the Wood has like 60 tunes. Like this is what we
Yep.
have to pick from. I think KDHX does not follow that, but like The Point, there's like 60
A
tunes for
block.
this month.
Yep.
This is what you get, and that is decided by their company, their parent company. They are with Hubbard. There's iHeartRadio and like all of
Mhm.
these Clear Channel or whatever owned like something like hundreds of radio stations
Wow.
around the country, and they're deciding what people hear. So I do like the stuff that comes through that, but you're not. It's going to be rare that you know you're going to get anything new with that. And that's not totally true, but it's going to be what's the new Death Cab for Cutie, or what's the new Beyonce, what's the new Taylor Swift. It's not this new person
Sure.
who we have vetted as it's good and you should hear it. It's going to be, well, we've put a ton of money on this person and we want you to hear it because otherwise we just lost our asses on the new teen idol or whatever.
Yeah, and I mean, there are certain programs that will focus on new
Right.
stuff. I mean, even The Point has a good program. I don't know if it's still on Sunday nights.
The local show stuff
Um,
or New
but
Music Sunday.
I
Yeah.
don't know what it's called. It might have morphed into something else. But I mean, there are some exceptions to that rule, of
Mhm.
course, but it's not a constant flow of it, like you said.
It's harder to find it. It's harder to find the new stuff. It's harder to find the KDHXs, which are so eclectic and awesome. I love what they're doing. So to answer your question, like how long can radio hang in? Man, I don't know. I mean, they made it through satellite radio,
That's right.
and basically satellite radios. I mean, it's still there, but I don't have it in my car, and my car's new, and
Yeah,
so
I
it's
think
like I
it's
don't want
kinda
to pay
dying
extra.
because people can just Bluetooth their phone in,
Right.
do
The
Apple
only thing
Play or whatever.
the only thing valuable on satellite radio is like Howard Stern if you're into him. But
Okay.
that's about it, you know? Or if there's like one person that has an ESPN satellite radio show that you can only hear that way.
Well, I mean, there are some cool, like, underground channels,
Mhm.
like, you can hear, gosh, we did a Bob Dylan special episode for his 79th and, talked about that a little bit. There's, like, some gosh, what would you call it? Not bootleg, but I don't know. There's this whole Bob Dylan channel on satellite, and there,
Mhm.
you're gonna hear stuff that you're not gonna hear anywhere else, basically. And so, I guess if you're into that, but I think eventually you'll hear everything,
Right. And
which
then
is
how
to your
much
same point. Like, then what? You move on to Coldplay and then get bored of that. It's
right.
like,
And how much are you going to pay monthly for that when for the most part it's still available on the radio or your
yeah,
phone? You know, that's the thing with Spotify and stuff. Spotify's great. I use it all the time, but I pay for it so that I can listen to what I want when I want, not have ads, not have to skip an inside an album or whatever their restrictions are still. Um, but for most consumers, even paying the 13 or $15 a month for Spotify is just like, that's outrageous.
oh
Pay for music?
my gosh, do you remember like how much we used to pay for CDs?
Like $25.
Yeah.
And now I've got, 500 of them over there
Uh-huh.
that have not moved. I just bring them in on playlists in Spotify or Apple Music or Google Play or now YouTube Music or Deezer or Beats Radio or whatever.
Yeah,
Um, but you don't need them anymore.
you don't.
Um,
It's
it's cheaper. It's cheaper for artists. You don't need them anymore. I mean, that saying, I made 300 of them when I made my album, but 290 of them are still right there. So, you know, and that's okay. People are still listening to the music. They're just not buying the CDs. So then you do vinyl for the people who really want the vinyl, or you do cassettes. Those are coming
yeah,
back.
you gotta make it desirable and
Yeah.
posh and whatever's in,
You got to meet your audience where they are,
even if it's uncomfortable for you. Or you just
especially.
deal with waiting until you find those people that
Sure.
can
Yeah.
directly connect. So, I mean, there's definitely that possibility.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, I think we're done here. Well, I think we could talk on and on, but
Let's do it again sometime.
for the
Well,
sake of the audience, and
yeah.
I think
Thanks for everybody who hung in.
yeah. Thank you. No, this was very interesting. I think hopefully a lot of musicians can take a lot from this. It's like a free college class.
Hey, you're welcome.
Yeah, so cool. All right. Well, again, this is Dr. Matt Hoormann, and I am Jen LeBlanc Bellhartz. I'm with Shock City School of Music, and you're with Lindenwood University. And would you consider yourself a freelance trombone
Yeah,
player? Yeah.
of
Okay.
course. Of course.
Cool. Awesome. Don't let the dream die.
Yes, ma'am.
All right, Matt. So, we talked about websites. Do you have a website you can share with the audience?
Absolutely. www.matthorman.com.
And that's HOORMANN.
Two O's, two N's.
Awesome. 2 T's. Don't forget the 2 T's in Matt. Double up. All right. Well, good chatting with you. This has been fun.
I've had a ton of fun. And
Awesome.
anytime.
And so that was Matt Hoormann from Lindenwood University, professional trombone player. Thank you so much for being here, Matt. And you've been listening to Coffee Conversations. Thanks for tuning in. Be sure to like, subscribe, share, and if you want, even, you can support. We would love to get all of our positive word out to all of your friends and anyone that loves music, and hopefully you've something positive. So thanks again, and we will see you soon.